Hello and welcome to Fight News Now Extra. My name is John Pollock, and today Robin Black and I are taking you through all of the headlines in mixed martial arts, including a new main event for the UFC's first show of 2014. Juliana Pena continues to make friends coming off of The Ultimate Fighter, and we're going to hear from finalist David Grant. Combat out of Brazil was the first to report that welterweight Jake Ellenberger was withdrawing from his January 4th main event bout with Saffiedine at Fight Night 34 in Singapore. Since that time, the UFC has moved the card around, with Hyun-Gu Lim put into the main event against Saffiedine, as Lim was already scheduled to fight on the card. Lim is 2-0 in the UFC with wins over Marcelo Guimaraes and Pascal Kraus. TUF finalist Juliana Pena was a guest alongside Jessica Rakoczy on Fox Sports Live, getting set for their finale bout on Saturday night. When asked about Ronda Rousey, Pena described her opposing coach as a, quote, spoiled rich brat and being pretentious. Pena was the first pick by Team Tate. And another finalist on Saturday night is David Grant, who represents Team Rousey and will be meeting Chris Holdsworth for the men's bantamweight contract. Grant was one of my guests on the MMA Report this past week and spoke about the struggles to make it to this point after trying out unsuccessfully for The Ultimate Fighter in the past.
As soon as we found out, me and Cherie, my fiance, as soon as we found out about the tryout, she was like, you've got to go, you have to go. Definitely knowing that I was in a really good position, because I tried out a few years ago and I never got in. I got told it was because of my record. And then I'd went and won 5 fights since then. So she was like, look, you have to do it this time. And we didn't have the money, but luckily enough, like, her dad and my dad both helped us out, and they give us the money to go over. So I was able to go over, and she was just behind me 100%. And luckily enough, it worked out for the best.
And we are here with Robin Black, getting set for the TUF 18 finale coming up on Saturday night. We just heard from finalist David Grant. And looking at the coaches pairing this year, Robin, I mean, sometimes you hit a home run with a Tito Ortiz, Ken Shamrock dynamic. Yeah. Sometimes you think it's going to be great with Brock Lesnar, Jr. Dos Santos, and you don't get that kind of interaction. For this one in particular with Ronda Rousey and Miesha Tate, certainly this feels like a grudge match that people are very much willing to pay come December 28th.
Yeah, no question about it. Saturday night's going to be a great card, but it's December 28th that really has the key matchup for this. Speaking of Saturday night, congratulations on getting married this weekend. Rammer and I and a few of the other guys are excited to come.
Yeah, it's a rumor.
It's a rumor. He's getting married. It's a rumor. But yeah, the 28th, man, when you see these two, as you build up to it, you've got the Weidman-Anderson-Silva rematch, and you got these two chicks who hate each other. They hate each other. They're both really talented. Rousey is a killer. She's kind of having that up and down. Sometimes fans love her. Sometimes they hate her. She doesn't care. It works no matter how you slice it, and Tate is the perfect foil.
And it was interesting because I interviewed Miesha Tate on Friday morning, and she was talking about the fact that, you know, underneath all this personal animosity, at the end of it, you have to imagine that these two do have at least a professional level of respect for each other, because you really do need that foil. And I think Ronda Rousey has very much benefited from having an opposition like Miesha Tate, and vice versa. It's a cool story here coming off their first fight in March, where Miesha Tate was actually looking pretty good in the early part of that fight before things turned around, and it was every other Ronda Rousey win with that armbar. I think a lot of people have a focus on the women's division because you have this grudge element.
For sure. And Ronda Rousey is a big enough star to get the UFC 135-pound women's division going. But she's not a big enough star to carry it without an enemy. You need a bad guy, or in this case, a bad girl.
And I think Miesha Tate's at that level, not at the level of Ronda Rousey, but certainly a star, I feel, coming out of this.
For sure. I mean, you're interested in her. She's beautiful. She's talented. She gave her the toughest fight that she's ever had. And you know what? So while we're at it, if you bet money ever, or even just bet for fun with your friends, this is a live dog, man. Miesha Tate at like as high as -700 and even -800 over the time. Ronda Rousey is a huge favorite, but Miesha Tate, man, she can catch her, she can hurt her, and if we get past that first round, all of a sudden you're into round 2, round 3, round 4. How's Rousey going to do? We don't know.
You continue to have all these questions involving Ronda Rousey, and getting later into fights, you've got the X Factor with Kat Zingano kind of waiting in the wings here. It's a lot of interesting kind of dynamics at play within that women's 135-pound division, and we're seeing this on Saturday night with the finale. I don't think it's a coincidence here that more of the women from the show are represented on the show outside of the men, who it's that finale fight with Chris Holdsworth and David Grant. Clearly these women, they struck a chord when it came to the ratings, and they get to move into a division which is still in its infancy, and it's not inconceivable that we see the winner of Saturday night's finale challenging for a title a year or so from now.
Well, and I think that's what Juliana Pena is thinking ahead. She starts calling her rich, spoiled brat and all this stuff. You're foreshadowing, and you mentioned it. Ronda Rousey and Miesha Tate have done a great job of building this up. Do they have respect for each other? Maybe, but they certainly will appreciate it if they're getting a little piece of that pay-per-view. They're going to appreciate everyone, and these are the kind of matchups that define fighters years into their future, and people look back at the great ones. So any of these women have a great opportunity, and UFC adding 115 pounds, that's because they looked at the numbers. People are interested. People want to see women fight.
Are people interested in January 4th, Hyun Gu Lim stepping in to fight Tate Rivalry on January 4th in Singapore?
No. Oh, in Singapore, right. Maybe a little bit in Singapore. I mean, just because it's...
Okay, well, why don't I couch that? The North American fan at home. Is January 4th being singled out because of this card in particular?
No, it isn't. And if you're a real hardcore fan, you know, if you were paying attention to the end of Strikeforce, you looked, and Tate Rivalry is very exciting, and he's very talented, and he was the last Strikeforce champion. You're curious. But beyond that, it's a bit of a stretch. But the UFC in Singapore is important for their business model. It's important for their expansion. And I think hopefully in Singapore and in the Far East you get a little bit of heat there.
And we've talked about this before. I think this really does represent kind of the extra cards we're going to see in 2014, are cards where hopefully you can get two names. In this case, I don't think you even have two names in this main event. You're really relying, this is Tate Rivalry's debut in the UFC, and hoping that you can at least garner interest in that market, and it's really not so much geared now towards the fan at home in North America.
Yeah, and when we look at it and we try to figure out why they're doing what they're doing, they have spreadsheets and numbers and analysis that explains if we don't get that much from North America, but we add this, the bottom line is gonna work. So we'll often be going, what is this about? But if you're a fight fan, you'll love it anyways.
We'll be watching it. Will you? Let us know. But right now we have more with Fight News Now Extra coming up.